Hello everyone. In this video we will take a look into the while loop in Python. While loops in Python are used when there is a requirement to run some line or lines of code repeatedly for a given number of times. The while loop iteration is condition-based, so the number of loop iterations, or exiting the loop, is managed by the condition set within the while loop. Let's get started. We will create a variable called value to check and assign it a value equals 1. Now we can create our simple while loop. While value to check is smaller than or equal to 5, print value to check is less than 6. And in the next line we will increase the value of our variable value to check by 1. So on each iteration of the while loop the value of the variable value to check will be increased by adding 1. So once this code is executed, the value of variable value to check will be 1. And then the while loop iteration starts. After printing out the output the code comes to next line, and the value of the variable value to check is increased by 1. So now the value becomes 2 and then again the while loop checks the condition. As the current value of value to check is less than 5 it will execute the next line and print out the output to console. Again the value to check is increased by 1, so now the value to check is 3. This loop iteration will continue as long as the condition is being met. In this case once the value to check becomes 6 the while loop iteration will be stopped. Let's run this code. As expected, our output has been printed out to the console 5 times. So, the while loop iteration has been started with value to check as 1, and on each iteration the value is increased by 1 after printing out the output to the console. Once the value to check has become 6, the condition in the while loop was not met. And the code have exited the while loop. As we have now understood how in simple while loop iteration is done in Python, let's try to understand a little bit more about how the increment of our variable is happening and the condition is met to stop the while loop iteration. In order to do that, we are going to print the value of the variable value to check at the start of the while loop iteration and just after increasing the value of the variable value to check. Let's run this code. The output is printed out as expected. The while loop has started with the value to check as 1 and printed out the value of our variable as 1. Then it has printed out our string statement and then the value to check is increased by 1, so now the value of our variable value to check has become 2. After that the last line of code is printed out the new value to check, which is 2 now. This loop iteration has continued until the value to check became 6. Once the value to check has become 6 the while loop iteration has stopped. So, our string statement has not been printed out anymore. Next, we will take a look on how to stop a while loop iteration in between with the help of break command. Also we will see on usage of if condition within while loop. For this we will clear everything first. Now we have a list called colors created. Also there are 4 items inside the list representing the RGBA color code. Also we have our first print statement which uses Python's inbuilt function len to get the length of our list called colors. The len function will return the number of items in any list that is being passed inside that function. And in the last line of code we have our print command to print the first item of our list. Please note that the list index of Python starts from 0. So passing the key 0 will get and print the first item of the list. If you are wondering why I am talking about lists here, it's just to get a brief idea of the commands associated with lists which we will use in our next while loop example. Let's run this code. As expected our first print statement has printed out the length of our list colors, which is 4. And the second print command has printed out the first item of our list, which is red. Now we can see how to use break and if conditions within for loop using the list we have created. Here in the first line we have our list named colors. Then we have created an variable called I and assigned it in value 0. Then we have our while loop which checks if the value of I is smaller than or equals to the length of our list colors. And a print statement to print out the item from the list colors based on the value of I. The if condition to check the value of I, in this case if the value of I is 2 then the break command in the next line will stop the while loop iteration. And in the last line, during each while loop iteration we will increase the value of I by +1. So if we run this code the output should print out the first 3 items of the list and then exit the loop without printing out the last item of the list colors to the console. Let's run this code and see. As expected, the while loop iteration has printed out the first 3 items in our list. As the index of these items were 0, 1 and 2, they were printed out to the console. Once the value of I became 2, the while loop has printed out the third item in the list, which is an index value of 2. Then the if condition was met and the while loop iteration was stopped. So, that's the reason we don't see our last list item, which has an index value of 3, has not been printed out. I hope this example of while loop iteration using list items was helpful. Hope the examples in the iteration methods help you to understand a little bit more about while loop in Python. Thanks for watching the video. Please do subscribe, that will help me to create more videos like this. Also, leave your valuable comments to improve these videos.